It was the morning of November 6, 2013, a Wednesday, when prosecutor Jay Rademacher rose in the Phoenix courthouse to present his murder case against Rob Fisher.
This case is about a cover-up.
Lee Ratter's family watched from the gallery, hoping, 3 years after Lee's death, for justice.
Will we ever find out what happened? Truthfully, I don't know. Do I want somebody to pay for his death? Yes. Most seriously, because he didn't deserve to die.
Good morning.
At the defense table, Rob Fisher was confident there was simply no case against him.
I've never heard a theory. I've never heard a motive. I've never heard anything.
That was about to change. Point number one, said the prosecutor. Lee Ratter's death was clearly not a suicide.
Lee loved his family, especially his girls. Lee would have never done something like this inside of his home.
Evidence of that? This is Lee's childhood best friend, who told the jury Lee never got depressed about money.
One of his favorite sayings to me that I've tried to be motivated by is just, Adam, you can always make more money.
And remember that email? The one that came in late at night, after which Lee called his business partner apparently upset? Maybe he wasn't. The very man Lee called told the jury Lee did not sound suicidal at all.
He was happy. He said he had family over. He was going to go have a couple cocktails, and he'd call me tomorrow.
The prosecutor called Belinda to the stand too, and later she told us she wanted to testify but was not happy to be a state witness. Still, she told the jury that though Lee did fret a little about the email he received that night, he was otherwise the same old Lee.
Just like a regular night.
Nothing was different.
Not that I recall.
So Lee had no reason to commit suicide, said the prosecutor. No, the only possible explanation was that he was murdered.
See, the physical evidence, the blood, the trajectory, all of that, that doesn't lie. Murder explains all of it.
His theory? As Lee Ratter and Rob Fisher sat at the kitchen table drinking vodka into the wee hours of that morning, something must have happened. Something that so aroused Rob, he went and got his gun and came back and shot Lee through the right eye, and then panicked and went about staging the scene.
The science doesn't lie. People do.
So, forensics. The arriving officer told the jury how he got suspicious when he saw the gun still wrapped in Lee's dead hand.
To me, it appeared that it was placed in his hand.
A very important first discovery, the prosecutor told us.
How is gravity not taking its course from either pulling Lee's body forward or allowing that gun to drop out of his hand?
But it doesn't really work with Robert putting the gun in his hand either, does it? I mean, why would a cop, for example, put the gun in his hand that way with the thumb through? This is an ex-cop we're talking about.
An ex-cop that's drunk.
But, said the prosecutor, not so drunk he wouldn't know who his son-in-law was when he made that 911 call. That was pure theater.
I knew that was Lee on the ground. But he's trying to cover up a murder.
There was more, said the prosecutor. Rob did something any ex-cop should know you don't do. He disobeyed a direct order.
And he said, hey, I'm a retired police officer. I said, okay, just step away. He says, I'm going to wash my hands. I said, no, don't wash your hands.
But Rob washed his hands anyway. The prosecutor showed the jury the pictures in the scene that seemed to prove Rob lied about being in the guest bedroom asleep when the gun went off. The neatly made bed, those two glasses in the kitchen, with ice still fresh in the wee hours of the morning.
Did you find it odd that there was ice in the glasses at 5:15 in the morning?
Yes.
But the key piece of evidence, said the prosecution, was the story told by the blood at the scene. There was blood on the pants Rob was wearing that, when examined, certainly looked like Rob had been sitting very close to Lee when the gun went off. And there was blood on the floor, which, said the state, proved Rob was involved.
Mr. Fisher moved Mr. Ratter's body and manipulated the area to make it look like Mr. Ratter had sustained a shot and it had fell backwards.
The prosecution's blood spatter expert, Rudy Acosta was his name, demonstrated how, in his opinion, Lee's body would have slumped forward in the chair after the gun went off, not backward the way his body was found. Meaning, Rob must have moved Lee's body.
I believe I think he just dragged him onto the ground.
What's more, said the expert, as Rob moved around the body, he left his footprints in Lee's blood.
Good friends tell me that he obviously stepped in the blood. Where the origin of blood happened, the left foot was in the blood. Obviously said that, so that. We show there's an interruption of blood, at least more than one.
But as we heard the state's case, we couldn't help but wonder, was some of it guesswork? Did it really amount to proof that Rob shot Lee or walked around in the blood in order to move Lee's body? We challenged the prosecutor on that.
So those footprints don't show culpability, though.
They show movement.
They show movement, yeah, but that's all they show, right? I mean, he may have been surprised he may have been sitting there. He shoots himself, he gets up, walks, and it doesn't necessarily mean that he's manipulating the scene just because his footprints are there.
You keep coming up with these possibilities.
Well, so do you.
I don't come up with possibilities. I have the physical evidence that supports the state's theory of this case.
So, said the prosecutor, the forensics said murder, even though there's no evidence of a disagreement between the two of them. There's nothing like that.
No.
But that wasn't the issue, said the prosecutor. Hard evidence was.
Murder is supported by the blood evidence, by what the ME testified, by the blood experts. Murder is supported by common sense and gravity in this case.
Oh, but of course, it wasn't quite that simple. There was another possibility altogether, as the jury was about to hear.
Coming up, the defense presents evidence that Rob simply could not have pulled the trigger.
His fingerprints weren't on the gun, his DNA wasn't on the gun.
And argues that the blood spatter evidence actually makes the case for suicide.
This is a self-inflicted gunshot wound.